Hello everyone, my name is Ian and you're watching Big Rock Moto. Thank you so much for tuning in today. And if you're new here, I hope you'll consider subscribing if you appreciate content like this. So this is part 3 in my series with the Aprilia Tuareg 660, which I have purchased for the channel for long-term review and testing. Now, if you're just getting to the series now, it might be best to watch the series in order, and I will link all the videos down below here. But either way, if you watch them in order or not, it's fine. But just know that I have a lot more videos beyond just this one you're seeing right now. So in this episode, I want to talk about the practical issues of the Tuareg 660. So here's what I'm going to cover. I'm going to show you the riding position and the seat height. I'm going to have my wife come on board and kind of show you some of the challenges for two-up riding with this model. We're going to do my famous drop and lift test. We're going to talk about some of the maintenance requirements of the Tuareg. We're going to talk about the parts availability, the dealer network, and some of the challenges or concerns that you need to be aware of with that. So with that out of the way, let's get started with this video. All right, riding position, seat height on the Tuareg 660. Seat height is 33¾ inches or 858 millimeters with the stock factory seat. Now, there are low seats available and there are taller seats available. And they also have something called a comfort seat, which I guess is better foam or something. It's kind of funny. Why don't they give you a comfort seat as factory? Is this the uncomfort seat? I guess so. Anyway, I actually find this very comfortable, but that's not the point. Let me jump on and show you the riding position and sort of how the reach is to the ground. So I am 5'10", which is 70 inches or about 180 centimeters tall. I weigh 90 kilograms or 200 pounds. I have a 32-inch leg inseam. So the seat is pretty narrow on this bike, and combined with that seat height under 34 inches, if I really try, I can kind of flat foot on both sides. Normally I don't put both feet down because that's just not a habit that I'm in. And so very easy to reach the ground. It doesn't feel like a super tall bike for me. But if you're a rider who is vertically challenged, it's still a tall adventure bike. In terms of the riding position is super upright, neutral, comfortable. I have a bar that's more of a flat bend, so the bars are further away. The stock bars pull back a little bit more, but I really prefer to have my bar kind of flat and forward because I ride off-road a lot, and that's how I like my setup. I also tend to rotate my bars a little bit more forward. So you can see my riding position here. It's extremely comfortable, plenty of leg room, no problem riding this bike all day. Okay, so I'm with my wife Maggie. We're going to show you the passenger setup with the Tuareg. There's some definite downsides here. So let me jump on it and have her jump on. Okay, why don't you go ahead and get on now.
Okay. So I won't break it, right, if I stand all the way there?
No, baby.
Okay, all right.
Here, I'll lean over like this.
No, I'm good.
So
okay.
It's a tall bike, which means it's a little harder for passengers to get on.
Okay, yep, I'm on.
Now, are your feet on the passenger pegs?
Yes.
All right,
yes.
Let me kind of go like this. Okay, so now you can see, here we are both on the bikes. You can see there's a decent amount of room, but what do you notice back there? Tell me what you notice. Where do you hold on with your hands?
Nothing.
Yeah, see, that's the problem.
Oh.
There's little, if you reach under here, but that's very uncomfortable.
Yeah.
That's a very bad design.
It is, because it's really so not obvious. And I have to like...
Yeah, you can't really reach it, right?
Yeah.
You couldn't do that. You can't hold on to those in practical way.
Nope.
And then how's the seat? The seat's kind of narrow, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So there's enough room front to back for us, but the seat's really narrow. So yeah, you'd hold on like this is what you would do.
Right.
But would you be, comparing this bike to other bikes you've been on, would you want to ride this all day?
To be honest, I don't remember other bikes.
Okay, but this doesn't seem that comfortable, does it?
No, that's the thing. Like, what I noticed is that even though as someone who doesn't ride bikes all the time, I just noticed that, I don't know what it is. It's like the seats are a little bit narrow.
Yeah.
So I feel the part of my thigh or butt is
falling off?
Yes, falling off. If I sit too close to you, then there's not enough room.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's not the greatest bike for a passenger. Now, if you can do this for a favor, you're going to stay on.
Okay.
And I'm going to kind of stabilize the bike, and I'm going to get off.
Oh, okay.
Okay, I'm going to grab the camera.
Okay.
And kind of show what's happening here.
Okay.
Why do you look so nervous?
I don't want to fall off.
So now, let's show what you were talking about earlier. Try putting your hand in there. See, That's a horrible thing. So
Oh,
really,
I can't even find it this time.
she can't even find it.
Oh, yep, find it, right here.
Yeah.
So have to be like this.
Yeah, so this is really not a great setup for a passenger. You'd want to put on some sort of actual grab handles or rear rack, and maybe even change the seat if you were going to do a passenger very often. So, okay, just stay steady there and I'll help you get off. Okay, thanks,
Okay.
Maggie. Well, if you're an adventure rider, you know this is an inevitable situation. You're going to crash or drop your bike. So I want to show you kind of how this bike contacts the ground, why you probably need crash bars and you definitely want bark busters, and how it is to lift. So let me first grab the camera and kind of show you where the bike's impacting the ground. All right, well, here's a good view from the front. You can see the side fairing contacting, my bark busters contacting, and the bike falls pretty flat. You know, it's not a GS, you know, with the cylinder sticking out the side. You can see my stock skid plate is already pretty beat up. It's really a crappy skid plate and it needs to be replaced as soon as possible. Okay, so hopefully you can see here, the bike is contacting here on the bark buster. The bike is contacting the fairing here, but not too hard. I think if the bars were turned all the way, this would impact a little bit harder. I have crashed this bike and dropped this bike in real world, and the fairings barely got scratched from those incidents, so it seems to be a little bit well protected, but the radiators are in there, so I'd recommend having a crash bar. And you can see down in here, so we've kind of got some contact with the foot peg, shifter, passenger peg. You know, things are gonna dig into the ground. That's the way it is. So let's get the camera back on the tripod so I can show you the lift. All right, let's do the lift. This is not the most enjoyable thing. There's multiple ways to do this. I know there's critiques of that, whatever, people complain. Different ways to lift a bike. The main thing is protect your back. Don't twist your back and try to lift with your legs and the core of your body as much as you can. So I'm probably gonna lift kind of with my butt to the seat and try to use my legs to push the bike up because I don't think I can lift it kind of in a position I am right now. So I always experiment with different ways of lifting it. I like to lift it that way a lot of the time with these bikes because then I'm holding the handlebars. If the bike starts to roll or move, I have some control of the bike. That really wasn't bad. Actually, this bike doesn't feel too heavy to lift. I think because the weight is centralized down in here with the fuel, the engine's nice and low, much, much easier than something like a Tenere 700. So really not bad at all. All right, let's talk about the maintenance requirements with the Tuareg 660. Let's start with oil changes. So Aprilia wants you to change the oil every 10,000 kilometers or 6,000 miles. The oil change on the bike, I'm getting actually ready to do the break-in 600-mile oil service or 1,000 kilometer break-in service, and it looks very easy. It's a spin-on automotive type filter. There's a drain plug. Probably have to remove the skid plate, which is a few bolts, takes just a couple minutes to do. So the oil change seems very, very easy. Let's talk about valve inspection. So if you're going to pile some miles on this thing or own this bike long term, you need to know about this. So inspecting the valve clearance is an important maintenance item, and you're supposed to do that about every 19,000 kilometers or 12,000 miles on the Tuareg. And in order to do that, a lot of the bodywork and fuel tank and fairings is going to have to come off to get to that. And this is the job that almost everyone's going to take to the dealer or a repair shop to have done. I'm going to estimate that valve inspection could cost anywhere between $500 and $1,000 depending on what your shop charges for labor and how fast they are getting to the valves. Now let's talk about the air filter. So when I did the Ducati Desert X review, there was kind of a lot of controversy about this because on that bike you have to remove the whole fuel tank to get to the air filter. Well, thankfully on the Tuareg 660, because it's a parallel twin and because they really thought this through, the air box is actually on top of the fuel tank. So it looks like the top of the fuel tank. There's actually a plastic cover that comes off, kind of like the BMW 1200 and 1250 GS models, if you're familiar with those. That little top piece comes off and then you unscrew the air box lid and you can get to the filter. It is a paper filter, and I'm sure there's foam and other options available for that. But the point is easy to get to, which is great. Let's talk about some other things. The chain maintenance, of course, you're going to have to, tension your drive chain and do normal lubrication. Drive chains, we don't need to go into that. They last 20,000 miles, plus or minus, depending on, how you treat your chain. I'm not good to my chains. I don't really lube them. I just keep them somewhat clean. as I can. Tensioning it's pretty easy. One thing I will say is that the bike, the rear axle on the bike is a 26 millimeter nut. I changed that out for a 27 millimeter nut because the tools that I carry, the tool roll that I move between my bikes, I have a 27 millimeter wrench that fits KTMs and other bikes that I own, which is kind of a standard size. So I switched that out because I don't want to have to carry a 26 millimeter wrench just for that. All right, now I want to talk about getting parts for the bike. So I've done some homework here, and I apologize for having to look at my phone to reference this, but there's some details here I want to share with you. So parts is a concern, right? There's limited dealer network, which we're going to talk about in a second. So I looked some things up online. Now for me, because I live in the country, I don't really live real close to my dealer, I order everything online mostly and just have it delivered to the house. Makes my life easy. So I looked up online. So a service manual, you can get a service manual for $18 as a PDF. That's amazing. Ducati won't even sell you a service manual at all. They refuse to do it. So great job Aprilia with that, making that available. Brake pads, I checked on brake pads. They are available. You could get them to your house in 1 or 2 days via shipping or get them at your dealer, and they're about $100 for a set of front brake pads. I checked into the air filter. So the OEM paper air filter is a little bit spendy. It's 50 bucks. There might be aftermarket alternatives that would be cheaper, maybe $20 or $30, maybe foam replacements, but it's something you can get. I looked into that. It's available, so you could have it right away. No problem there. In terms of if you were going to take the valve cover off and do a valve check, the valve cover gasket is 10 bucks and it's in stock. Clutch. So what if you burned out the clutch and had to replace your clutch plate? So the clutch kit is $285, but right now, if you happen to need it right now, which no one probably does because the bikes are all new right now, really. But if you did, you wouldn't be able to have it. You wouldn't be able to get it. So it's a 2-month back order as of the time I'm filming this. So that would be a problem. If I somehow fried the clutch, I could be sitting here 2 months waiting for parts on the clutch, and that would suck. Now, what about some accessories? So I looked into the quick shifter. The quick shifter is $220, but the problem is it's back ordered about 2 months. So if I want a quick shifter, I have to wait 2 months for that thing to come over from Italy, for them to produce it, whatever might be the case. A center stand is available. The factory center stand is available, and it's in stock here in the USA, and it's about 220 bucks. So that's good news with that. Let's talk about the dealer network for Aprilia. So this is a huge concern. One of the most common comments I see about this bike and people's, I think, hesitation to maybe invest in this bike is there's not a lot of dealers. And that's true. So I'm going to put a map here on the screen of all the Aprilia dealers in the USA. There's about 75 to 80 Aprilia dealers in the United States right now. And some states don't have any Aprilia dealers at all. If you live in certain states like Utah or Montana or Wyoming or the Dakotas, there are no dealers, zero dealers in those entire states. Now, that's a problem because how are you even going to buy the bike if there's not a dealer, not even to mention servicing it, getting parts, whatever the case may be. Now, how does that compare? So KTM, I looked this up, they have 350 KTM dealers in the US, so that's a huge bump up. Now, what about Honda? So Honda Power Sports has 1,000 dealerships in the USA. So comparing 1,000 Honda dealers within the US, 48 states of the US, or 50 states, I'm sorry. I'm thinking of the lower 48, but all 50 states, there's about 1,000 Honda dealers, only 77 Aprilia dealers. So yeah, it's a valid concern. It's a valid problem. It doesn't mean it's a bad bike. It doesn't mean the dealerships are bad or whatever. It's just that it's a smaller brand. There's less dealers, and that could be a problem depending on where you live. Now, is this an issue for me? No, not really, because when I do travel, I don't tend to usually have a lot of breakdowns, but I'm not stacking on, 100,000 miles in one trip riding around the world. If I was doing that kind of riding, I probably wouldn't take an Aprilia, just to be honest with you. I'd probably take a Honda or Yamaha or something like that. But for the way I ride, taking 1 or 2 week trips within the United States or doing weekend rides or day rides, and I live in California where there's multiple Aprilia dealers within a couple hours of me, it's not a problem for me, but this could be a problem for you. All right, well, I hope you've gotten some good information out of this episode in this series. Now, I know, be patient. The next 2 videos are all dedicated to riding this bike. So we're gonna go in depth. They're gonna be really good videos showing all the different riding situations, off-road and on-road with the Tuareg. I've already filmed a lot of that. It's in editing right now, so just be patient. They're coming out soon, I promise. Thank you for sticking in there with me with this series. If you have questions, comments, concerned about this video or about this bike, put them down below, and I'll do my best to get to you. Also, I don't say this too often, but if you really do need to contact me if you have a burning question, shoot me an email or send me a DM on Instagram or Facebook, and I do reply to those usually within a few days. So thank you so much for watching. Please support Big Rock Moto. There's ways to do that down in the video description and comments below. Please ride safe, and I'll see you out there.